Hey y'all, it's your girl Kai the Chemist, and for today's topic, we'll be talking about water, aka water, depending on where you're from. So we'll start out with some fun facts. As of today, which is February 26, 2021, Earth's surface is covered in 71% water. Now, of course, that number is going to increase as our environment changes, but that's at least where we're at right now. Also, the human body is composed of 60% water, and then the organ that is made up of the most water is your lungs, and that's at 83%. Also your brain, heart, liver, kidneys, pretty much a majority of your important systems are made up of water. Now, most dietitians and practitioners will recommend for you to drink lots of water. It seems to be a golden standard to encourage people to consume at least half of their body weight in fluid ounces, which is definitely a lot, depending on certain scenarios. However, any progress is some type of progress. Now, we really need to sit down and have this conversation. Like, do you even know what's in your water? I know that I've done this myself. I'm sure you all have done it at some point, where you feeling real bougie, you spend that extra $2-3 on that alkaline water or, that little fancy bottled water. But do you actually even know what's in it? A. 2, do you know where it's coming from? B, do you even understand the process that it went through to get clean, right? And that's what we're really going to talk about for today's topic. Now, there are like 3 main, I would say, like categories that seems to be a consistent pattern in regards to how companies are considering their water to be clean. So the first being pH. And this has to do with the acidity value of the water itself. As the pH value is decreasing, that means that these solutions are more acidic. Whereas if you're increasing in value on that pH scale, now you're shifting more towards an alkaline solution. Now, water is typically found at a neutral state, and then different chemicals are added to go ahead and change that pH value. Secondly, mineral content. Now, minerals are found naturally occurring in the earth, and this is relevant depending on the source of the water. For example, if you have some fresh groundwater or spring water, you have these natural minerals in that water, whereas depending on how water does get processed and treated, sometimes minerals are getting added back into that water. Now, our bodies need minerals, our bodies are composed of minerals. However, nothing's ever good in an excess quantity. And then last but not least, contaminants, right? And that's definitely what we'll be talking about in the second part of this talk. What is actually in that water? Like, what are the different things that are in water in regards to your organic solvents? What are some of those minerals, metals, pharmaceuticals, as well as any other additional thing that's in that water that should or should not be there. Now, I think that it's definitely relevant to kind of go through what are some of these cleaning and treatment processes that different companies as well as all water sources are using and implementing in some way for their filtration process. So first, we'll go ahead and start with typical filtration. Now, I'd say at least a solid 9 times out of 10, most companies, when they're saying filtration, unless they specify, they're talking about carbon filters, or they could be using activated carbon filters. And that's what those Brita filters are, or those filters that you go ahead and add to your tap, to the tap itself. And what that's doing and how that even works is, with that carbon or that activated charcoal that's in the filter, it'll sort of bind to some of those contaminants. Next, we can talk about distilled water. And that's just a fancy word for saying you have some water, you boil it, you collect the steam or the vapors, and then you turn that back into water. Now, most distilled water is what's commonly used in the scientific lab, and this is because it is the most effective way at removing mineral in the water itself. Then we have RO, which is reverse osmosis, and how that water gets processed is pretty much it gets pushed through a semi-permeable membrane, and it's filtering out certain contaminants. Next, you have ionization, and how that works is it uses the chemical properties that are in the water as well as the different contaminants, and it kind of switches them out based on, again, those chemical properties, whereas deionization is very similar, with the exception that it removes most contaminants that have any type of charge. And again, that's based on their chemical properties. We also have ultraviolet light, and how that's working is it's used to help filter out certain bacteria and viruses. Now, I also do want to make sure that I state that this word purified water that you constantly see on water bottles, what that means 9 times out of 10 is they're referring to the filtration process that involves those carbon filters or that activated charcoal filter, unless it specifically specifies that it was RO or distilled water or processed in a different way. Now, how you can become more educated about your water source, specific to where you're living right now, or even if you have intentions of moving elsewhere, there's a website. It's called www.ewg.com. .org. I lied. Hold on, let me take it to the top. www.ewg.org/tapwater. And every year it is a requirement that companies annually report the different contaminants that are present in the water at that particular time. Now, the federal government establishes, certain thresholds at which companies should not be passing through or above. And of course, if they do, they have to report it. So a lot of this information is available online. Now, for the second part of this video, we're going to go ahead and actually look at what are some of these contaminants. How do you read this report? What does that even mean? And, again, being mindful about what's in the water that you are drinking. Is it worth you going to spend that extra money on bottled water when maybe you need to be buying a certain filtered water? Or also, depending on what are the contaminants that are in your local water source, how do you even need to be filtering your water, right? So again, we'll go ahead and dive into all of that next week. I will definitely be sure to include all of the sources for everything that I talked about in this talk today down in the little info comment section. So thank you for giving me that little 10 minutes of your time. As promised, I definitely do want to kind of keep my videos short, sweet, simple, but still trying to give you enough information to get them gears going, get you thinking, having you question some things. So thank you. Have a good day.